Okay, so what I'm going to do is try and describe where some of the problems lie in some of the fittings around the house. And the first one is with the patio doors, and there's a problem with the locking mechanisms that when we lift the handle, it's already locked, but when we lift the handle, not every occasion but quite frequently, when we lift the handle and try and then lock with the key, the locking mechanism just refuses to lock. Basically the key goes halfway around and then stops and jams. At this point, what we've found is if I jiggle the key around, remove it, sometimes open and shut the doors, that will eventually free it up so we can actually lock the doors properly. But there's definitely an intermittent problem there. The other more serious problem is with the door alignment, and that's revealed in a number of ways. Partially, we'll just demonstrate that the doors are actually closed and fully engaged. But what we can see down here, particularly for the lower part of the door, we can see with just gentle pressure that the door is able to move away from the rest of the frame. And furthermore, that we can see that, well, we can't see, but it's not windy at the moment, but if it is at all windy, the amount of air leakage that occurs underneath the door is just not satisfactory at all. There's literally a gale blows through underneath the actual door itself. And that's down in part, I believe, to the fact that the doors aren't aligned and fitted properly, but also the seal underneath the door doesn't work, basically. I can show you what the part of the problem comes from, and it is a door alignment problem. And what's happening is the mechanism that we have here at the lower part of the door simply doesn't engage with the other part of the mechanism here because of the door alignment. And if you close it, although it might be hard to see on the camera here, if you close it, then what you can see is in fact the mechanisms just don't engage when you close the door. And this is in part due to the fact that the door appears to be loose, and both doors appear to be loose. And it is hard to see, again, from the camera at this point, but there's a gap here, and in fact the door is very easily moved on the frame, so I don't know whether this has come loose after the door has been fitted, but the door is actually sagging on the frame, and this is true for both doors. So the doors are essentially not hanging on the frame correctly. Part of the problem is exacerbated by the general air seal on the conservatory, and what we find is on a windy day, the amount of draft that comes in the conservatory is almost unbelievable, and I've had to provide a temporary fix by pushing a sealer of sorts, just a polythene sealer down beneath the top of the conservatory and the glass, and basically that just needs looking at and possibly being properly sealed with some silicone all around just to try and improve the air seal. It is a lot worse than the old conservatory, which was quite a cheap conservatory, and on a windy day we get a huge amount of draft into the conservatory which blows through into the house through very, very leaky patio doors. The whole situation is a lot worse than what we had before we changed the doors. Tendency that we've got is in relation to one of the opening windows in the upstairs of the house, and the window itself doesn't seem to fit very well, and we get a huge amount of draft past the seals, and it's not hard to see just by looking. There's actually a large gap between the seal and the actual frame itself, and it seems to be that there's a problem with the actual hinges itself, probably. And I've noticed there's a few times that this has happened. I can't show on the camera, but there were a few screws underneath here, and they come loose, and I've had to retighten those screws. And what appears to be happening is the screw heads are catching on here when the window closes and pushing the window out so it doesn't seat properly. And it seems to be a problem with the hinges, and also if you have a look carefully, there's quite a lot of movement in the actual hinges themselves, up and down, which doesn't happen on the other windows, so the hinges may need replacing or something like that anyway. So we've got a huge amount of draft past this window. And the final problem relates to the window in the master bedroom, and the seals look reasonably okay, although there's certainly evidence of some slight gap in there. But basically the problem is, again, on a windy day, and this can happen with all the windows closed, there's clearly air blowing past these seals, and unfortunately it just sounds like there's a mouth organ playing when the air blows past, and this happens in the middle of the night, and it really is very loud when it blows past the seal. So we've tried cleaning it and all sorts, and that doesn't seem to fix it. So there's a problem with the seals around this particular window as well.